Good evening to everyone. Good evening. I want to thank you all for joining us and all of our viewers, our regular viewers, as well as our new viewers for the Built Live podcast. Just want to apologize as we are beginning. I am in a hotel room and my internet is a little wonky, so it might be a little slower than I usually am. But that's because of where I am broadcasting from. I want to welcome you to Built Live Podcast, where we help you build a strong foundation for youth ministry. And joining us today is just me. I have a guest who is an expert in our conversation, but usually Pastor Juan is the one who is leading our time together. And he is going to be he's actually having some challenges with a family emergency, and so he won't be joining us today. With that said, we'll be praying for him, and we are excited to be discussing a topic that's close to our hearts, which is mega impact youth ministry and large events. We'll be exploring the power of large events to create lasting memories and shape the faith journey of young people. And to help us unpack this important topic, we have a special guest with us today, Dr. Pedro Perez, Pathfinder Adventure Director for the Florida Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. But before we dive in, I want to hear from you. I already see some of our chat turning live here, and want to thank those of you who are here. I see we have Lyle who is identifying. Good evening. Good evening to you as well, Lyle. Blessings to you. I imagine you were saying good evening to Pedro as well. But our question this evening, for those of you who are watching just now, throw in the chat, what is your most vivid memory from a large weekend event or a retreat that you went to over the course of your life? What is the most vivid memory that you have? Think back to those formative experiences and share them in the chat as we are getting started. We promise at Built Live that if you give us 45 minutes of your life, we'll make you a better leader. So let's pray as we spend this time together. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you, dear Lord, for the opportunity to converse and to talk, dear Lord, with leaders in the state of Florida and beyond. We ask, dear Lord, your blessing upon our conversation. We ask, dear Lord, a blessing upon Pastor Perez, dear Lord, as well as a special blessing, dear Lord, on Pastor Juan and also his family. These and many other blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. So after our intro video, we'll get right into our conversation with Pastor Perez on mega impact.
Welcome to Built, where we explore what it means to be built up in Christ. We believe that this is the most important thing for every Christian, and that we need to be careful not to lose sight of it. In every generation, the church has faced the danger of misplacing its emphasis on other things, such as money, numbers, buildings, or institutions. These things are not bad in themselves, but they are secondary. The primary thing is to be built up as a spiritual house, as Peter says in his first letter. That means to grow in our relationship with God and with each other, to be filled with His Spirit and His Word, and to be ready to serve Him with courage and faithfulness. We don't want to have the finest tools and facilities imaginable, but be too weak and trembling to use them for God's glory. We want to have spiritual poise and power, so that we can use what God has given us wisely and effectively. That's why we are here, to encourage you and ourselves to be built up in Christ. Join us as we dive into His Word and His will for our lives. In this episode, our topic will be... Thank you for joining us, and now here is our host, Pastor Juan Rodriguez.
Well, as I shared before, it's not Pastor Juan Rodriguez, it's Pastor Andrew Nugent, and I am blessed to have I have Dr. Pedro Perez with us, who is joining us on this wonderful conversation. Thank you, Pastor Perez, for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Andrew. It's great to see what you and Juan are doing with the Youth and Young Adult Ministry here in Florida Conference. I'm honored to be a part of your session tonight.
Oh man, it's good, and it's always a pleasure to be able to see what's happening, exciting things that are happening in the Florida Pathfinder Adventure Nation, with so many thousands of young people across the state of Florida who are coming together all the time under the leadership of not only yourself but also with your partnership with Pastor Stewart and the rest of your team,
For
and
sure.
wonderful things that y'all are doing. And that's a part of why we asked you to join us today on this conversation. But before we get to that, I want to ask, tell us a little about yourself, your spiritual journey, and how you came to become the director of Pathfinder Adventurers in the Florida Conference.
For sure. Good. I was born outside of Chicago in a little town called Hinsdale, Adventist ghetto. Raised
Oh,
in Kansas from the age of 7 on. Left home about the age of 14 to go to boarding academy as a sophomore, and then never spent more than 2 weeks at home since. I've been on the move. I worked summer camps in the summer, did all kinds of different things in ministry. At Enterprise Academy, the dean of theology from Union College came down and talked to us as seniors as we were talking about career planning and all that. He made this statement. He said, God had one son and he made him a minister.
mm,
And when I heard that, it rocked my world. I was like, that's it. That's what I got to do. If that's what God wanted his son to do, and that's the only, like, he had one life and one chance, and how do you make an impact? And God used that phrase to burn into my heart. I went to Union College thinking about theology and physical therapy, and took classes, general chemistry, took life and teachings. And after that first year at Union College, it was clear to me that I could do science, got an A in the class. It's not that I didn't have the brains for it, but I was like, man, I feel so much more fulfilled learning about Jesus and then being able to share Jesus with other people. Got involved in campus ministries at Union College. I had a great time there, took a year out as a student missionary, got hired by Michigan Conference coming out of Union College, and spent 10 years pastoring there. When I went to the interview, they said, how do you think God would use you in ministry? And I said, well, I'd like to be a pastor of a Spanish church. I'd like to be a youth pastor. I'd like to have my own pastoral district. And I'd like to see where God leads me. And so while I
wow.
was there for 10 years, I got to teach for 2 years at Great Lakes Adventist Academy. I got to be a pastor of a Spanish church while I was in seminary. I got to be a pastor of my own district and had 3 churches in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And then God brought me back and let me be a youth pastor in Barron Springs. And so all of those doors,
Wow.
everything that I had asked God for and asked Michigan for, they provided for me. So I'm always grateful to Michigan Conference and the way God used them to help open doors for me to get a broad taste of what ministry is all about. I came to Florida first as a family life pastor in Winter Springs, which is now Spring Meadows. Spent 3 great years there. Got called to be the Southern New England youth director up in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island. I denied that. I turned it down 4 times. I said, no, I think I'm good.
Wow.
Let's stay. And they kept coming at me. And I was like, okay, fine. I'll go see it. Like, and then I saw it and I was like, Claudia, that's my wife. Like, this is it. Like, this is the next step. And so we went
Oh
there and
my.
served as youth ministries director for 4 years, 5 summers at Camp Winnipeg and Southern New England Conference. And then from there, they called us to come down to Florida to be the youth ministries director at that time and to run all of youth ministries. And so we did that for 6 years. And then in 2016, those got separated again, and I became the Pathfinder Adventure director and have been exclusively in club ministry since 2016.
Wow, incredible! So you've had a whirlwind of a journey. The Lord has blessed. The Lord has led you from your. I want to just point out it was all the way back because of a message from a pastor in academy that you became what you are today. I mean, well, obviously because of the leading of the Holy Spirit and you being willing to answer that call. But I mean, that's a word to all of those pastors, chaplains who are on school campuses right now. You have an incredible opportunity to pour into the next generation. Don't take it for granted, right? I mean, this is well, right here from Dr. Perez, who has blessed thousands as a result of the appeal of a pastor at Enterprise Academy. Praise God for that.
Yeah. And you'd also asked about spiritual journey. It was at Enterprise Academy where a different person coming for a week of prayer challenged us to give our heart to God. And I never had a journey where I felt far from God. Grew up in an Adventist home. Parents were both Adventists. Family was Adventist. Like, we went to church every Sabbath. We had family vespers. Like, we did all kinds of stuff. But that speaker challenged me to say, have you really given Jesus full control of your life? And I remember for the whole week of prayer, I'd kneel by my bed. I still remember the orange, red, nasty shag carpet, like 2 inches thick. I knelt by my bed every night that week. And just when I was about to say, God, I know you're at work. I want to surrender. And tonight I'm going to go to bed. And then finally the night came where I said, tonight I'm going to say I'm done playing games. Like, I know there's a void in my life. I think you can fill it. And I'll be willing to do whatever you want me to do. And that happened to me in Academy. And that also happened because of a speaker that came as a guest. So for people like you and I, right, and maybe those here that stand in front of young people on a regular basis, you never know how God's going to use what you say. And here's the crazy thing as a speaker. Like, people will come and tell you, do you remember when you said this? And half the time, I don't remember what they said I said, right? It's like I think God said something to them that I didn't say, but I'm amazed at how God does his thing to bless other people when we as leaders say, God, I'm yours. Use me. Do whatever you want. I'm dedicated to you. And God's blessed me through other people. And it's great to be on the other side of that, to be able to be used by God to bless other people.
Well, we are excited. We're excited about, what God has already been doing in your life. We're excited about what God is doing through your team. Y'all have had an opportunity. You have a number of, you have one particular event named Red Zone every year. It's large. I would say there are a number of our unions who don't have a union camporee as big as what we have here in Florida each year for our Florida camporee. But we'll keep that under our hat. But I mean, you've had year after year experience of doing these large events. And I want to also identify, because somebody might be out there and say, well, large event, if it has to be in the thousands, I'm never going to do that. But large event can be different depending on the context that you're in. So our first question, as we are here, and you are uniquely equipped to be able to answer this, but our first question tonight, as we are here, is what is the unique role that large events play in the overall discipleship journey of youth and young adults? Like, how does that work, right? Why do we need, you have some pastors who will complain, oh, y'all taking my kids away so much, we don't, why do you have to have them over there? What's really the goal? What's really the desire? Why do we have these large events, and how do they play a role in discipleship?
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Maybe think about it this way, right? If your family gets together and goes out to Taco Bell or to PF Chang's, wherever you go out, that's cool, right?
Okay,
like, you get to go out with your family and you get to go out to eat. But what happens when you get together at Christmas? Or what happens when you get together at a family reunion, right? Like, you're talking about dozens of people all piled in, and family creates this unique sense of we love each other, we care for each other. And are those two different? Absolutely, right? It's not that one's better. It's not that one's needed, the other one's not. Like, you need to go out with your family. You need to enjoy that. But then you also need to get together with your bigger family. So think about your youth ministry or your Pathfinder club. Think about that as that's what you do on a week-to-week basis, right? And that's needed. It's important. But there's something special that happens at a big event that you can't get at a smaller event. One of the things that impressed me the most when I was a youth pastor in Berrien Springs, I read this book, and it said the ABZs of Adventist Youth Ministry, and there was an axiom in there, principle. And it said 25 is the number of people needed at an event for young people to feel like something's happening over there. And I thought about that a lot, because Sabbath school, right? Check it out. Youth Sabbath school, most of our churches, a young person walks in, and I used to wonder, why don't young people stay in? Why do they go to the bathroom, or why do they go check something? Because if they come in and they only see 2 or 3 people in the room, the impression that they have is, well, that's not ready yet, or that's not happening, or I'm not sure if I want to go into that. But you walk into a room of 25 plus people, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what's going on in there? I want to be a part of that. It changes in the psyche of a kid. And that number always stuck with me. Like 25 is that tipping point. I'm sure that 20 might work sometimes. It might take 30 some other times. But just think about that principle for a moment about large events, and that's saying 25, right? Now that's a small number
Wow.
compared to a big thing, but think about the things you've been to as an adult, right? Like if
Yeah.
you go and you're in line for something and the line is long, yeah, it stinks to be in the long line, but you're like, man, people want to be here. Like this is
Right.
something people want to be at. This is something that's worth being at because others want to be here too, and I'm part of those that are going to be there, and that's a
Yeah.
cool thing to feel. Large events have this unique role, I think. That's to me the biggest thing is a large event creates a memory and a mental hook that you can hang a lot of stuff on for a lifetime. Kids will talk about Camporee. Kids will talk about a red zone. Kids will talk about something more often than they will a Sabbath school. Not that Sabbath school is bad, but because something special happens there, right? Like think back to
Hmm.
if you were at Gillette and you were a part of the storm, that's a story you get to tell, right? You get to tell the
Yeah. Yeah.
story. I was in my tent. The thing was shaking. I thought it was going to blow away. I had to grab onto the pole because the tent's lifting up off the ground. The
Right.
wind hitting. That's a story they get to tell. And then they get to tell this story. When it was over, I walked out of my tent and I looked in the sky and people were pointing. I was like, what are they pointing at? What did they see? They saw a rainbow. That's a story a Pathfinder gets.
Yeah. There was a rainbow.
Yeah. And it's part of the story where they say, I went through this and then I saw God show up here. That's the role of a large event. A personal story for me. I'll never forget when my daughter, she was 19 at the time, came to a camporee with me in Oshkosh. We're sitting in the back in the golf cart. Thousands, like 60,000 Pathfinders had their phones up with their lights on the screens and they were singing
Oh,
the theme song. My daughter turned to me and she said this, Dad, I can't not feel God here. That blew me away.
wow.
I was like, that's why we do large events. Something special happens. Like there's a unique thing that happens. It's cool to pray one-on-one with somebody. Like an experience that no one should ever take away from us, and we don't want to.
Mhm.
But it's different when you're singing with thousands of people. It's different when you're all together and say, wow, these are all Pathfinders, or these are all youth, or these are all kids just like me, and they're going through stuff like me. That's a unique role that large events play. And I think that's something that is not easily reproduced in a week to week setting. It's something special. It's not that one's better than the other. We need both, but we all need
Right.
things that we can hang our faith on, right? We all need hooks that we can say,
Wow.
God showed up here. God blessed me there. I'll never forget when I was singing that song and this happened. We need those events and those moments that draw young people in to say, that young person who's the only kid in their high school that they think is the only Seventh Adventist in the whole high school, maybe there are two, maybe five, and they got 500, 1,500 kids in the school. That kid needs that moment where they say, I'm surrounded by Adventist young people. I'm not the only one. Like there are tons of us, and we are a massive force that could do something amazing for God. Those moments can energize us. Here's what I know. We all hit bottom moments, right? Like we all hit low
Mhm.
moments. We all hit moments
Yeah.
where we're not sure if God's close. We're not sure if God really hears us. We're not sure if God's really there. I love what one pastor told me. He said, if you think your prayers don't go past the ceiling, go outside and pray, right? So there's no ceiling. Go outside and talk to him. But some of us hit those walls, and what do? If we have those memories that God's Spirit can bring back to us, He can remind us. Do you remember when you were on that youth trip? Do you remember when you went to that event? Do you remember when I spoke to you there? Do you remember when I did this? And those things can soothe and comfort us and help us get out of that funk of wondering, does God really care? Do I really matter? Because sometimes those hit us hard, and those events can help anchor us to say, no, I know better than how I feel right now. I know I feel this way right now, but I know better than how I feel. And the feeling will pass, and I know it will. And I know that I can remember the God who says he's with me. And even though I don't feel it, I know he is. And I experienced him here and here and here. And I saw him here and here and here. And I know that he's real. That's to me part of the
Oh,
unique role of a large event.
that's incredible. I mean, this is just good stuff. I'm feverishly trying to write down a few notes from what you're sharing. I caught 25 being an important number. So and I'm thinking about that 25. And I'm like, and I'm not, I know we'd have to do a whole nother podcast on this, but like, what does that mean for Sabbath school? Like sometimes we want to divide up and have these intimate small groups of young
Yeah.
people of 5 and 6 kids. What if we had all of the cyber schools in one room and had the electricity and the energy of all the young people there in that room together to be able to create that vibe where young people are interested in coming? I don't know. Maybe
Good idea.
that's something that's there. But go ahead.
No, I think that's a good idea. And to me, that's the beauty of ministry, that every location kind of has to sort it out and experiment and say, what's going to work best for our environment?
Right.
You as leaders know your kids, your situation. But I think there is an undeniable fact in that statement that kids like to be where kids are. And if young people don't see young people there, it's not exciting to them. It's not the same vibe, the same energy. It's tough to be excited with 5 people and keep that going. Once you hit that 25, like it's contagious. It's like it spreads, and you can like add different stuff. So that's not to say if you have 5, you're sunk. It's not to say if you have 5, you're never going to have a good youth group. What it says is, how can I, as a youth leader, create opportunities for other youth to join my youth, or for my youth to join other youth, so they can have that experience on a regular basis, not on a weekly basis, but at least a chance to say, hey, we are bigger than what we look like right now.
Amen. And I don't know. I mean, I might be trying to overstep here in regard to my desires for my future events, but I long, I'm going to pray that there's a young person, maybe a couple of young people, who will identify the same thing like your daughter, who said, I can't not feel God in this place. Man, what an incredible thing. What if our events, regardless of whether it's a regional event in a local area, or it's a conference-wide event, or it's a union or division event, we strove for that I can't not feel God in this place. That's incredible. Well, Pedro, we're gonna go on to our next question. But I mean, this is good stuff. We never promise that we get through all of our questions, but we do always provide excellent conversation, and we are definitely having one today with Dr. Perez. Our second question, we're going to try and get through here. We only have a few more minutes because our time is running by fast. How can youth leaders effectively leverage the momentum and excitement generated by a large event to foster ongoing spiritual growth and development? This is that question for those youth leaders who have gone, some say to the mountaintop, right? They've gone to the high and exciting experience. The electricity was in the air. Everybody is coming back. They're geeked. They're ready to go. How do you keep that momentum after you're coming back to your local context, to your local church? Because you can, I know youth leaders can feel kind of, envious because they don't have the resources. They don't have the big screen. They don't have the smoke mirror. I don't know what we have. But anyway, whatever we have, those events, how can they keep the momentum going?
Yeah, great question. And I love the leveraging the momentum, right? I love that phrasing. Here's what I've learned. You can't stay on a high forever. You can't. You can go to an event, you can be excited about it, you can have a great time, but you always come back. I love how the world we live in reminds us that nothing really lasts, right? Like there are seasons. Even in Florida, there are seasons. They're not as pronounced as winter, summer, spring, and fall in other places, but you still have seasons. And I've learned that you can't always live in summer. You can't. As much as we'd like to think we could in Florida, try to go to the beach in January when it's cold at 60 degrees, the wind's blowing, the water is cooler. It's not as fun as when it's 90 degrees and the water is 85 degrees. Like, it's just a different experience. So here's what I'll say. I've come to learn that just like the event, the large event has a unique role, the one-on-one adult to young person relationship has a unique role. And that, I think, is where you get the maximum momentum out of something, right? So you go to the event, you get the high from the event, you get the fun, the energy from the event, but you come back and you walk through that experience one-on-one with an adult, a young person and an adult. The adult says, I'm going to intentionally help make the shelf life of that event last longer by talking to a young person, by saying, what was the best thing that happened to you at that event? Like, how did you hear God talk to you at that event? And then how could we keep that as part of our conversation going forward? Because none of us live on mountaintops. It's not reality. We all have mountains and we all have valleys. That's reality. And so we need to teach young people that mountains are awesome. Like the view from a mountain is irreplaceable. You can't get past that. But the depth of connection you can have with another human being, one young person talking to one young adult, sharing life. You can call it mentoring. You can call it discipleship. You can call it a lot of different things, but it's a relationship that lets that young person see my spiritual life. I get to see their spiritual life. And as we grow in connection with each other, we learn how to do life together, and we learn how to do spiritual life, not just as a part of, but we learn how to be spiritual beings together, living authentically before one another with Jesus as our guide. That is irreplaceable. That you can't get that from going to Disney. You can't get that from going to a large event. It's like, it's not either or, it's how could we make both come together, right? So how can you make every week Sabbath school, regardless of how many are coming, the best experience for a young person? How can you make those big events the best experience for a young person? How can you make those one-on-one relationships the best experience for a young person? Those are the keys, I think, to making youth ministry work. You've got to say each thing has its unique role. Each thing has its place. Everything is not a hammer. Everything is not a nail, right? Some events are this, some events are that. And as leaders, when we plan those events, if we know this is the intention, and if you're a leader planning an event for other leaders and you let those leaders know, here's what we're trying to accomplish with this event. Here's how we want to set you up to succeed after the event, to be able to take kids, young people to ABC, and here are some resources or tools to help them. One of the things we've tried to do for the event that you said for Red Zone is we tried to build questions, because here's what we found. Not all adults know how to talk to kids outside of how you doing? How's school? What's up? Did you get your tent set up, or did you get, like, how can we have deeper conversations? So we've tried to create cues, questions, where we say, when it's nighttime, kids are starting to wind down, have one young person come out and sit with you by the fire. Say, hey, come sit by me for a little bit. Other adults, other people are there, right? You're not alone. I'm not talking about being alone with kids, but you're right in a somewhat alone area where you can have a conversation, but you're still surrounded by people, and say, hey, here's the theme for the event. Has it been getting through to you? Like, are you connecting with it? Where has it been a hit? Where's it been a miss? How's it talked to you about your life? Like, is it going to help you with anything when you go back home? Here's how it's working for me. I really like this and I really like that. And I thought, man, this would help me to do this when I go home. This will help. I've been praying about this worker that I work with. And man, that one idea, God's going to help me with that when I get back. And we connect life to the event, right? We extend the life. I love how all of these soda companies and different bottling companies have started to put expiration dates on their bottles. Like, it's best drunk by this date, right? Like, if you drink this soda by this date, then it's the freshest. What if we said, let's not think that the event has to end when the event's over. What if we said the shelf life was a little bit longer? And what if we extended that? And what if we said, could you and I meet like every other week and just talk about life and see where we're at? And here's why you need a team, right? Because you can't do that as a leader. I don't know how many kids you have, but if you have 20, 30 kids in your youth group, you can't connect with all of them, but you can recruit adults who can work with you to connect with those kids. And that's the secret sauce of youth ministry, is relationships. It all goes back to Jesus came in the flesh, right? Came in the flesh as a human being to walk among us. It's the whole sanctuary model, right? The presence of God in the sanctuary, in the scriptures, like he's among us, he's with us. Those are resources in scripture that remind us ministry happens when people connect one-on-one. Ministry happens when people come close and get in the presence of other people. So the big event, great thing, has its place. Mountains, celebrate stuff, but come back and walk through the valley and take a journey with someone. Wow. And here's why it's so important. Because someday that young person is going to hit a wall. Someday that young person is going to fail a test. Their girlfriend, boyfriend is going to break up with them. Something's going to happen at home. Somebody's going to get sick and die that they love. And if they don't have a relationship with a caring adult, who do they turn to? Where do they go?
Wow.
Who are they going to have a conversation with? And that's why it's so important for young people to be able to have adults in their life that care about them, love them, show them that they care, listen to them, help them feel seen and heard. And that's how, when those crisis moments hit, they're going to turn to you. They're going to say, I don't know what to do. I'm hurting. And I'd much rather have a young person turn to an adult that cares about them than not have anywhere to turn and also maybe even hurt themselves, right? Like there are lots of things that happen as a result of not being able to be cared for, and they don't know what to do. They haven't figured out their emotions completely, how they fit in the world, where they fit in. So everything has its place, and if we can think through things as leaders and say, this is why we want to do the big event, this is why we want to do the regular event, this is why we want relationships with adults and kids, I think we can get the best of both worlds and help young people have a significant experience to have a lifelong relationship with Jesus.
Powerful, powerful. So that one-on-one, we're talking about leveraging the momentum of a large event and taking that back to your local context. And right now in youth ministry, it's a big word about mentoring. And what I hear you saying is that a large event can't mentor, right? But in that local context, though, that mentorship can happen. I mean, it's just so powerful. Debrief after the event. This is a word. This is a word. Just hey, just for all of y'all youth leaders out there who are still mending after Gillette. This is a word for you right now, where you could actually be planning your first AY, your first youth event as the new school year is coming in, and actually have a debrief for those who went to Gillette, right? Have them come and share their experience. And you can be able to do that, right? And then also, not only that, but also kick off a mentoring program in your local church. That can be something that could be happening with Red Zone. Just last week, we had Pastor, goodness, now I can't remember his name. He's the associate youth pastor at Forest Lake. Mark Reams, sorry.
Mark Reams.
I had a senior moment there for a moment there. Mark Reams, he came in and he shared that, the key to actually, getting back after summer break was never letting off of the gas. And he also identifies some of the very things that you're saying, that instead of letting off of the gas during the summertime, instead hyper focus on drilling into your leadership team, pouring into your leaders. If you want to check more on that, you can check our previous episode. But I want to also just highlight, Lyle shared in the comments, one-on-one can be priceless, right? And so this is something that you can be able to leverage as a youth leader in your local church, coming off of those large events. I'm looking at the time. It's already 7:30. But I have to get this one last question in, because I know there's a youth leader who's out there, and the enemy wants to discourage them. They want to say large events are for conferences, large events are for other people. Those people do large events. Pastor Pedro, can you share some specific examples? Oh, no, actually, I was going to ask you this one. This is the one I was going to ask. We could go back. I'm going to ask you this one here. I am skipping. I promised him I wasn't going to skip. I'm skipping one. What are some practical tips for youth leaders who are considering hosting a large event but may feel overwhelmed or unsure where to start? Give us two, if possible. Just two practical tips of what a youth leader could do who may be feeling overwhelmed or unsure, but knows they should host a large event in their area.
Yeah. Two things. One, start before you're ready. Two, recruit a team. Start before you're ready. I love that phrase because none of us are ready, right? Like, I could wait all my life to be ready. I love how the Proverbs say that if you wait for the rain to stop, you'll never plant, right? Like, come on, get going, do it. Just make it happen. I love the way that one of my mentors kind of helped me out. I was youth pastor at Berrien Springs. I went to the seminary and thought, man, seminary has all these young seminarians that want to make a difference, impact the world. Like, what if we could get them to be a part of a team and they could help me pull off a youth rally? I was like, I don't have to do it alone, right? That's part of the recruiting team, right? Start before you're ready, recruit a team. So I get over there. I meet the seminary professor, Barry. We're talking. He's like, yeah, come to class on this day, this time. We'll let you talk to the class. So I get to the class, and here's what Barry did. He said, hey, guys, I just want you to meet Pedro. He's a local youth pastor here in town, and we were going to have you plan a youth rally on paper. And he came and talked to me and said, what if we actually gave him a youth rally to really plan and not just pretend one, but really do one? And so he's going to lead you for the next couple of weeks, and he's going to start planning with you now, and I'll see you later. Like, when he's done, you guys can leave. And he walks out of the room. Wow. Barry and I never talked about that. All I said was, I want to come sit in the class. I want to see how it's going. I want to meet some of the leaders. And he left. And so I'm standing there like, so let's plan a youth rally, guys. What do you think? And we start planning. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready at all. But I knew that, man, if I could get other people on the team, we could go farther, faster, do more, accomplish more, and it'd be a better experience for young people. Again, going back to that 25 number, right? I had at least 25 young people in my church we could have a youth rally for, but that's not as fun as having 300, 500 young people come together. So start before you're ready. If you think you've got to get everything figured out before you start, here's what I've learned. Find a date, start telling people about the date, and that puts pressure on me to say, I got to plan something because it's coming. It's coming. It's on the calendar. Start before you're ready. Put a date out there, get it there, and then say, okay, now, God, who can you help me pull together? Who can you help me get together? I'm not saying start the event before you're ready. I'm saying start the planning. There's a difference, right? I'm not just saying, well, I think I'll do it this weekend, and it's Tuesday, and let's just do it. I'm not ready, but let's invite 500 people for this weekend. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying start the planning before you think you're ready, right? Start the planning before you think you're ready. And then once you get going, recruit people, bring them around you. It's not how good you are. It's how good the people are that you bring on board that help make the event successful. And I've always had people who've come on board and recruit and recruit and recruit. Here's what I've learned. I'm not big enough to do everything that needs to be done. I'm not wise enough to do everything that needs to be done. I don't have all the angles. So we assign teams. Here's a team that's going to take care of food. 3 seminarians. You guys got to figure out food. 3 people got to figure out Sabbath school. Who wants to figure out Sabbath school? These 3. Okay, 3 people got to find us a speaker. Who's going to find the speaker? These 3. And we start divvying up all the things. Like what? Let's make a list. What are the things we need to do? Okay, now who's going to be the people that start to do those things? And we recruit the team. We make assignments. We start going. You could do something like this in your area. You could say, hey, there's another church close by. I don't even know the youth leader's name. So, right, think about micro steps, right? Micro steps. The first things you got to do. Let me find out the name of the youth leader closest to me. If I want to do 2 or 3 churches, contact your youth department. Contact one, contact Andrew and say, help me find out who these people are. Like, what's the first step I need to take? Find a date, start putting things together, start before you're ready, and just start moving. And you'll find, here's another phrase that I love. You can't steer a parked car. You can't. But once the car's moving, you can start to change the direction, right? Try it. Try it the next time you get in your car. Move the steering wheel when the car's not moving and see if you change direction. You don't. You can't steer a parked car, but you can steer a moving car. That's why you start before you're ready. You jump into the planning. You set the date. You say, we're going to go for it. You start moving. You look for pieces. You get other people involved. You come with your list, but you ask them to come up with a list. And you start putting things together. And as you progress, all of a sudden you see, wow, we weren't ready, but God helped us get ready. Wow, we didn't know who we were, but now we've got a team that's helping us be what we can be. And the energy that you will feel, the excitement that you will feel to see that come together, the excitement you'll feel when the young people get there and they start walking in, and on the day of the event, you see, wow, look at all these young people coming. Those are things that make a difference in your life because it helps you do this. It helps you open your eyes to how God could use you. It helps you expand how much you think God could do through you. And it helps the young people you serve to say, this is pretty cool. This is amazing. Like, why they did this for us? Like, they planned all this for us. They went through all this effort for us. And here's another thing. This I didn't do so much early on, but involving young people in that planning, letting them give input, letting them have a piece of things and say, hey, here's what we're thinking. What do you think? Would this work? Would this work? Especially when programming comes. Programming to say to the young people, what would you like to see? And how can we add different things? And young people can make videos that are way cooler than videos that I can make. Way cooler. So why not turn them loose to do certain things? Here's what I know. People have buy-in when they get to help build something. When they get to help be a part of building something, they get excited about it because they're invested differently. And here's the other thing. When you build your team, ask them to do small stuff. Don't ask them to plan the whole weekend on their own and then you step back. Ask them to plan one thing, another thing, another thing. People are busy. People have limited time. People got lots of stuff going on. So if most people can say, yeah, I can take care of food. I'll make sure that we have food on Sabbath afternoon. We'll do lunch. I got it. Or I'll make sure that we have Vespers covered. I'll plan the special music. Okay, I got that. Give people something to do. Here's another phrase, and then I'll turn it back to Andrew. I love what Reggie Joyner says. He says, if you want to have a young person feel significant, give them something significant to do. And I love that
Mm,
because it's hard for young people to feel like they're needed, wanted, valued if they never are given anything significant to do. And you find that also in the growing young material where you give them the keychain, you give them the
right.
keys, right? Like if you give a kid keys, they feel important. And giving kid an opportunity, a young person to say, hey, how can you help us plan this event? That's another way to help them feel valued and included. And then who knows how God will take that and use that to bless others throughout their lifetime.
We here at Built Live, man, we're handing out leadership diamonds. I hope y'all are over here with a bag, grabbing them, because man, these have been good stuff. Thank you so much, Pedro. I want to just kind of go back over here. Start before you're ready, right? If you feel like you're not ready to do that large event, you've got what you need to get started. That's a word from Dr. Pedro Perez. Get into it. One of our viewers identified, throw them in the deep end, right? And then the other one, because either the other one was what was the other one here now? Oh, recruit a team. Recruit a team. Don't do it alone, right? Do it with others. Do it with others, right? And work with others, especially the young people that are in there. Have them have buy-in into the event as well, right? So don't be afraid. The Lord is with you. He will bless you. He'll bless your efforts. There was one advice, I think, because of the quality of advice that Dr. Perez has been sharing today. There was one that was given today. No, that one, not that one. Here, this one. Definitely ask advice from your youth director, who has put many events together, right? So yeah, this is from one of our viewers, Eric Jean-Baptiste, who is sharing that as well. And so yeah, I see one. Oh yeah, no, oh yeah, this is yours. You just said that. Okay. We're coming to a close right now. All of our time. We try to do 45 minutes. We're at 42 minutes. So we want to honor your time. But before we close, we want to first thank Dr. Perez for the wonderful, wonderful messages that he's given. He says, no one of us is good as all of us. I like that one. Yeah, that's from you. No one of us is as good as all of us. Yeah, I can't type that fast enough, but yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. So this has been a powerful conversation on mega impact events and youth ministries. We want to give a big thanks to our guest today, Dr. Pedro Perez, for sharing his expertise and his insights on how to leverage large events to impact the lives of young people. And so usually at this time, we would actually go right to our registered guests. But we have none who stayed on, at least. So we've given everybody a chance to be able to hear that third question today. This is what you would get for those of you who didn't register. So in the future, if you want to be able to get that additional time, those additional 15 minutes, we're going to encourage you to register, and you can find all of our past episodes as well as the opportunity to register for our upcoming episodes at our website. It's right there on your screen, Florida Youth Ministries /Built Live. Well, actually, it's not spelled out Florida Youth Ministries, but it's floridayouth.com or FLYTH.MN, Built Live. And that'll get you to the page for our Built Live landing page, as well as for the registration page for our next time. And our next time, when we come together, we're going to be starting a brand new series where we're going to be talking about venturing through relationships. We have gathered a number of guests who are going to be coming on and talking about healthy relationships. We're talking about a healthy relationship with ourselves, a healthy relationship with others, a healthy relationship with God. And we want to be able to encourage youth, young adults, youth and young adult leaders, youth and young adult Sabbath school leaders to be encouraging those healthy relationships in their ministry. As we're wrapping up our episode, we want to remind you the words of 1 Peter 2 and verse 5. You also, as living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house, a holy priesthood, to offer up a spiritual sacrifice acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. Thank you for your attention and your time. May the Lord bless you. And we will see you again in 2 weeks for our next Built Live episode. Take care and God bless.